Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 153 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
This is MrMattyPlays. I'm a Total War multiplayer YouTuber. We've got a nice little community of Total War multiplayer, primarily with Warhammer Total War. It's a super fun game, and honestly, I don't remember who it was that was on here a while back, said that Total War has a really entitled community, which is somewhat true. There are elements of that, but honestly, there's a really great multiplayer community for Warhammer Total War, and there's a lot of great channels showcasing it. And because it's a bit flashier than some of the historical Total Wars, I think it has more potential as an esport. So that's kind of what I do myself, and there's quite a few other channels. So if that sounds like your thing, feel free to check that out. MrMattyPlays on YouTube, and Twitter is @MrMattyPlays. So yeah, check me out.
I'll link down below. All right.
Hey guys, it's Kopi, Paul here. My Twitter handle is @KopiTheKitten, and I have a YouTube that I rarely upload on, Kopi the Kitten as well.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Trevor Coleman. I'm a I'm studying computer science. I'm interested in gaming and possibly making games in the future.
Awesome. I didn't know that. What kind of games are you trying to make?
Right now, I'm trying to make a platform game because it's a good start-off point, and then I'm trying to learn everything so I can make a very diverse portfolio.
Very nice. Yeah. Funny enough, Noah, he used to study game dev, and actually he started off with a platformer too, so that's pretty cool. Good stuff. For those who want to know, Noah, fun fact, the game that he was making was called Bounce. Because we're going to make a H.A.M Radio Podcast trivia game one day when we're really popular, and we're going to include that in there for those who pay close attention. Anyway, for those who are, these are all patrons as well, but for those who are a part of the Patreon, you get early access to the podcast. Today, specifically, it's going to be early podcast access because Karak is not here, as you guys can tell. The reason for that is he is going away this weekend, and he didn't want to feel too rushed or anything, which I get, so we're doing this podcast many hours earlier than we usually do. If Patreon ain't your jam, we do mobile access for iTunes and Google Play. It just comes out a little bit later. So now, let's get into this week's discussion, where it's going to be all Bethesda this week, by the way, folks. So for those listening, if you're here for something else, you're in the wrong place, because it's all speculation. We're going to start off with the Starfield Reddit leak. Oh boy. Now, we're just going to refer to it as a leak. This one doesn't look as plausible as other info dumps we've had. I am going to try to sprint through this full Reddit post just to recap any of the information in case anyone forgot, so that we can go over multiple points. So I apologize in advance for my early rambles. So, this Reddit post reads as the following. Heads at Bethesda have been noticing a rise in science fiction content in the market, so they're going to make a game of their own in this genre. They've always wanted to do this, even Todd has. They want to get ahead of games like Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen, Beyond Good and Evil 2. The game, in fact, is called Starfield. It's more of a space fantasy or opera setting instead of a hard science fiction. It's like Star Wars, so there are fantasy themes in it that have naturally transferred from their previous work. You can make your own character. The game looks a lot like Fallout 4. Animations aren't as janky. You can climb on buildings and terrain from a skill. The game uses a cutting-edge procedural generation technology. A lot of the mechanics for the game rely on it. There are 4 important planets in the game you can travel between in the system. 3 of them have procedurally generated terrain and are fully sized. The other one is a big city planet and has a set map size around maybe the size of Morrowind's map. And then there's also the galaxy map with a section called the Unknown Regions, where there are endless planets generated that you can explore. They are also fully sized, and inside the planets themselves have been described as planet-sized dungeons. Content on the planets also procedurally generated. Sounds a lot like No Man's Sky, with alien species, animals, locations, all of it generated. You can find things as small as a camp to something the size of a colony or a city on the planet's surface. There is a unique mechanic in the exploration side of the gameplay that if you discover an alien species, catalog it, and return it to that normal space area with the 4 planets, you can actually unlock that species as a playable character, which would be cool. Your character is silent, and the character is not anyone special, so something along the lines of Oblivion or Morrowind. You choose what planet you want to start the game on. You can also choose a random planet, which will spawn you on a generated planet. There are 30 ships There's combat similar to Fallout 4 with better cover mechanics, infinite weapons comparable to the Borderlands system, an expanded settlement system where you can establish colonies on an empty play of land on any planet. You can also establish colonies on the unknown planets and populate those for income. And then there are ground vehicles like speeders and some transports. There are factions, and even those can be procedurally generated. And last but not least, you can't just join every faction, but you can be in multiple at once. And then they're saying that the trailer is supposed to come in late May. Do you guys believe anything from this Reddit, we'll put in quotes, leak? Whoever wants to go first, by all means.
I mean, there's definitely some elements of truth to that, I think. More and more Bethesda seems to be going towards procedural generation, and I mean, that touches on a lot of aspects in the game. I mean, you look at Fallout 4, for example, you have, like 10 base gun types with all these mods, and from that you get all this procedural generation of these different weapon variations, and, like you have the End of Dungeon Steamer Trunk, for example, that Oxhorn has made so popular. It's it's all procedurally generated, the loot inside, and there's these rated quests and stuff like that. So I do see that procedural generation is going to play some kind of factor. I definitely agree that there's going to be some areas that will be handcrafted, but as to whether that's exactly for planets or whatever, who knows? And the unknown planet system, I mean, we'll see if something like that actually comes out, but I could see, at the very least, having a couple planets where they generate the landmass and then kind of hand place, dungeons and different things and kind of handcraft around that procedurally generated landmass. Because I think they did that for, like, Oblivion, like they randomly generated the trees, and I mean, they've done that in the past, so it's not out of the realm of possibility to say that those things could be true.
Yeah, if this is fake, it seems like this person did their homework, because a lot of what they mentioned has like you said, like a realm of possibility surrounding it, where, for example, the procedural generation stuff, you look at it and go like, oh, it's bullshit, no way Bethesda does that. But when you look deeper, the Radiant quest lines, even in both Skyrim and Fallout 4, while we tease them a lot, those are definitely procedurally generated, and Bethesda carries that forward with each subsequent launch of their titles. And so you wonder if they're going to take another big leap with it. Coleman, what do you think? Or, I'm sorry, Strider. That's my fault.
No problem. I personally think it's fake, because I think with the current engine, if the game, I believe Starfield's real and it's going to come out this year, but so I don't believe it's possible they made a new engine, and I feel like they couldn't they can't do horses really with the current engine, and I feel like they couldn't do like a ship flying. It'd be too glitchy.
It's a very good point.
Yeah.
Kopi, what about you?
I don't think it's real, but like someone said, Starfield most definitely is probably gonna be announced this year and probably released. A May announcement is possible because like last Fallout, we got that, and then there were some leaks leading up to E3. A lot of it, like you said, Matty, a lot of it, they did their homework, they did the research. A lot of it sounds plausible, but I don't know. Some of it's just so, I don't want to say outlandish, but it almost, like procedurally generated colonies the size of Skyrim cities. That's pretty. Yeah. And then filling that with procedurally generated factions, like that's kind of big. I could see the generation almost messing up, hiccuping every now and then just with that. I don't know.
Well, and beyond that as well, I mean, you look at the current console generation, and even with mods for Fallout 4, like Sim Settlements, for example, it's pretty tough on the current iteration of the Bethesda engine to create these massive cityscapes with tons of textures and NPCs and stuff. So Skyrim-sized cities, that sounds to me pretty out there. So, I mean, there are definitely elements to this leak that I say, I don't think so, but...
What do you guys think about the idea of taking an alien species, bringing it back, making it a playable race for another playthrough? That was the one that stuck out to me as like, this would be really cool, but I don't know if I buy it.
I mean, it could work if they have like a finite number. Like, let's say that there are 7 races, and when you're out there visiting these unknown planets, whatever, you have a very small chance of running into one, and then you have to also get back alive with them. So But then I don't think that there would just be an infinite number of randomly generated NPC races, because then you would get some, like, I don't know if you've ever used the random generator in any of the Bethesda games, but you come up with some pretty interesting looking characters, let's say that.
Yeah, no, I agree to that. I think it's definitely going to be a finite number, and it's almost going to be probably have like a codex almost, and then you bring it back and it's like question marks or whatever, and then a description about the character pops up. Because if you're going to be talking to NPCs, they're probably going to refer to you as whatever species you're playing, and if that's procedurally generated, it wouldn't. Exactly. I don't see that playing out like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, even in Skyrim, they'll, like, if you're an Arconian, certain conversations will recognize that, and it's like if you come back with a procedurally generated race, then how does the game acknowledge
what the fuck is that?
Yeah, like, especially if you're this new race wandering the planet, it's just everyone, like, is it going to be generalized, but they're going to be like, what is that? And that's it. Like, how do you know if they're disgusted by you, or if they're fascinated, or if they don't care? I feel like there's too much up in the air that could work against it, and it would break the immersion, which I'd say Bethesda can be pretty good at. The other thing that I think is what sticks out to me about this leak not being plausible is it takes two of Bethesda's greatest strengths and pretty much gets rid of them. I can see them doing more procedural generation, but if you get rid of handcrafted dungeons, and especially their faction storylines, which I thought were always pretty good, those are easily two of their biggest strengths in any of the games that I've played from them. And so once you remove that, it's like, what's special about this other than exploration, which I love, but you can't even have that environmental storytelling that, for me personally, like, propels me. It gets me excited to go into a new dungeon just to find out what happened there. If all of that's gone, what's the point, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's in a way they could tie them together. I could see them in a way tying them together just through random encounters, and even with a lot of the faction storylines in, I think, Fallout 4 and some of the others, like, it's randomly generated. They say go to this dungeon and get this item. Or they could say, go to this randomly generated planet and find this item, or maybe the planets are populated with certain set pieces, like you might have a unique random encounter that has a chance of populating on a planet, and then once you see it, it won't happen again, kind of like, what's the one in Fallout 4, the dude Art, where there's like two dudes named Art, and one of them's a synth, and he's trying to kill the other one, or something like that. Like, just those little random encounters that are unique, but they can happen, in a various different locations. Maybe they can happen on these randomly generated planets as these sort of set pieces that populate there.
Definitely. I also feel like, what do you guys, when they say, okay, it's not going to be sci-fi, it's going to be more of a space fantasy, let's say Starfield is along those lines, more like a Star Wars, does that intrigue you more, or are you more of like the Mass Effect kind of harder sci-fi?
I think that's basically saying, is it going to be more Fallout, or is it going to be more Skyrim?
Actually, yeah.
And I don't really know. I think I'm down for either or. Depends on how Bethesda tackles it,
Mm-hmm. Strider, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I like both versions, and I would love either or. But I would really love if there was magic in, like, a space game, kind of like magic similar to the Elder Scrolls or something like that. That would be really cool.
Absolutely.
But I doubt that they're doing that.
I don't know why that idea never crossed my mind. Like, imagine fucking shooting fireballs out of your hand with, like, a laser assault rifle in the other, and you're just decimating space pirates. Sounds awesome.
Yeah. I'm a big fan personally of Warhammer 40K, and in that universe they have psychers, and there's some magic and mysticism to it, which I honestly think it's going to be a blend of, like, Fallout gunplay with some of the mysticism and magic of Skyrim. Mm-hmm. Whether it's explicitly, like, shooting fireballs out of your hands, we'll see. I mean, that's awesome, and that would be amazing. But we'll see. It could be like teleportation, kinetics, different kind of psychic powers. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. It could be. I definitely think there'll be some aspect of mysticism and magic, because to me, space fantasy says, like Jedi or Psychers or, magic influence, basically. I don't know how else to say it.
Okay. I was thinking almost on the lines of Destiny, how the characters, act in that game. I don't really know if it's magic, but the Traveler and everything, his superior technology. I don't know if that's like referred to as magic in the Destiny universe or whatever, but that's kind of how I see it almost. Like your ultimates and stuff. Well, yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
What do you guys think of the idea of infinite weapons in a Bethesda Game Studios game, like a Borderlands loot system? Because for me, I always say, like, that's Borderlands. Borderlands is known for that. Let it stay with Borderlands. And I didn't really like the legendary weapon system in Fallout 4. So what are you guys thinking on that one?
Go ahead.
It's gonna happen, whether we like it or not.
Oh, wow.
I'll agree to that, yeah.
Look at that approach. All right.
Yeah.
Tell me why. Why must I accept my fate?
Because I think the mass, like, we're kind of a small part of the, like, we're the core fans. There's less of us than the mainstream fans. And I feel like mainstream fans, like, if they hear there's, like, infinite amount of guns, they're like, oh, cool. And that makes them really excited about the game. And also, they really want to hype up this game because it's a new IP. So they're going to be making all these, like, lines, like, we have 100,000 more lines of dialogue than Fallout 4. And we're this much bigger than Fallout 4. And that's something they could say and start bragging about.
It would be a good building point.
Yeah, for me, infinite weapons, I don't know. Fallout, it just says to me that they're going to have, like, a couple of bases with lots of mods so that you basically get a large amount of variation so that there's kind of like infinite weapons, but not really. I mean, even in Borderlands, you have the different manufacturers, and each of them has a different archetype, sniper rifle, machine gun, whatever. So there's still a finite number of weapons in the end, but just because there's so many different recombinations of different mods and legendary effects and this and that. Exactly, yeah. So, and that's not to say they can't make a few handmade and unique items and scatter them throughout the different quest lines and whatever, and have that be part of the handcrafted experience. But I do think that we're going to see some kind of randomly generated weapon system very similar to Fallout 4, but to the next level with everything with like a legendary elemental effect, very similar to Borderlands, or different types of legendary effects, I guess you could call them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it doesn't go down that path so much, but if it does, which as you guys are saying, it probably will. I hope they expand on it more. At least, I mean, Fallout 4, they made it sound like there were so many combinations, and you go in there, and you're just gonna pick what's best.
Yeah.
Like the best muzzle, the best stock, whatever. And you end up with not really that much variation. Sure, in the enemies you fight, but what you're using, there isn't. You're just going to get whatever's best. And I guess that's kind of hard to avoid almost, but the best way, I guess, to avoid it would be going down the unique weapon route without, these procedurally generated weapons. But it's inevitable at this point. So, I don't know.
I think also...
Oh, go ahead.
I think they also could place some special unique weapons in, like, certain areas. Like how there's like Daedric artifacts in Skyrim, and something similar to that, but like a Starfield version. And so they could also do a combination of both, so both fans are happy.
It's kind of what Fallout 4 tried to do. The issue I found was like Skyrim had amazing unique weapons. Like they felt separate from the base weapons, like your iron swords or whatever. Whereas Fallout 4, and this is mainly because I think, they're guns, so there's only so much you can go out of the realm of possibility. Like the Cryonator was a good one, but there's only so far you can go with a unique weapon without, like, breaking the universe itself. That it didn't feel that switched up. Like, you'd find, like Kellogg's, I think, revolver or whatever, and it was kind of just a revolver. It didn't feel or look that different, if I remember correctly, but it just felt like with certain unique weapons there wasn't as many, like this feels separate from the bunch. Like Kremvis Tooth was a good one, but like outside of that, it's very hard to think of certain uniques that really stuck out as truly unique. Like the turbo
Yeah.
shotgun, that was a amazing weapon. It was just kind of like a normal shotgun. There wasn't like this unique element to it, like a Wabbajack, for example.
I remember in Fallout 3 they had a lot more unique weapons. Like you had the experimental MIRV, which I know it's in Fallout 4, but I don't think it's a yeah, but I don't think it's a weapon you find. I think it's just a modification you can do. But then they had that laser pistol that you could get from Colonel Autumn, and I think it was rapid fire, and if it wasn't, it was a really high rate of fire. But like you said, there's not much in the Fallout side that they could do to almost make these weapons unique without ruining immersion, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, Fallout 3 arguably had a worse problem of what I was just talking about with 4. Like, I think a lot of Fallout 3 weapons just had unique names and didn't really have like a cool skin to them, or I should say model rather, that made it feel separate or apart. It was just like another 10mm pistol, but it did twice as much damage, and maybe like the fire rate was upped a little bit, something along those lines. So that's the exciting part about Starfield, is it's a new universe, and if it's space fantasy, you can really go crazy with something like that. And I'd hope that they would. Oh man, like that idea of like wizards in space is so wild to me.
Yeah, that's why I said, I was like that's why it makes me think of Destiny, because you got like the warlocks or whatever, and they're kind of like the wizards. That's why that my mind keeps rolling back to. That's how I'm picturing it. I know, but that's just what I keep rolling back to.
No, I'm saying like for all of us, because I'm sure you're not the only one. Like I'm sure a lot of people are just listening, going, "This is like Destiny, No Man's Sky." Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I made a joke in the Discord the other day. It's like, what if No Man's Sky was good? What if No Man's Sky was made by Bethesda, had some handcrafted content that was really high quality, and the procedural generation was actually good, and had some rules in place so you didn't have ridiculous things happening like giraffes with, snake feet or whatever. Just ridiculous kind of weird things that happen with procedural generation. But going back to the vehicles things for a moment, I think we've seen that with the dragon riding and with the vertibirds in Fallout 4, they're incredibly buggy, and I mean they work, but kind of not really.
Such a tease in Fallout 4. They're like, yeah, you ride one. I'm like, oh, sick, and you can just sit in the gunner seat and just fly by people. It's like, all right, sick.
And the minute you install mods, you just start flying through buildings, and it just messes up the height map of everything, and it's so buggy. But anyway, I think that the spaceship is just going to be like you could maybe purchase different spaceships, but it'll be like your own kind of player home. Maybe they have the settlement system active there, so you can customize decorations and whatever. But it'll just be a cell that you go into, and then like from a star map, you'll select where you want to go, and then you'll get out of your cell, and the spaceship will be there in the port or whatever. And it's not going to be there. I don't think there will be any flying through space or space combat in Starfield. I don't see Bethesda doing that at all. That's not their forte. They would have to invest a lot of time and resources into developing that, and I think that would take away from other parts of the game. So, do they want to do that? I don't think so. That's never really been their strong suit. So I think it's just going to be like a mobile player home, basically.
Interesting. That's a good thought too, because Strider hit on the engine earlier, and then when you say that, like a mobile player home, that's maybe like a fast travel system. That you might be onto something there. That'd be interesting. What do you guys think about the idea of an expanded settlement system? I've always said I'm of the mind that I don't hate the settlement system, just I'd rather them focus, kind of like what we were just talking about with these ships, I'd rather them focus their resources somewhere else. More of on their forte than, this endless content and rebuilding areas. But let's say it is in Starfield, you can establish colonies. It doesn't, for me, I just don't want it to take away from the world. Where do you guys stand on settlement mode in general? Whoever would like to go first.
I think it's going to be, if that were to happen, it would be more like Fallout 4, but almost even worse, because you're getting procedurally generated colonies. And I don't know if these colonies that are procedurally generated, if you're going to be able to take them over and then customize them yourself or whatever. But I just feel like there's not going to be any depth to the cities, or other than like the main cities that you're going to. There's not going to be NPCs that matter, or NPCs that have unique stories that you're going to have to do quests for them that are actually interesting, rather than go fetch this or go save my daughter from some bandits or whatever. So I hope that the colony system is isn't focused nearly as much as Fallout 4 was. But with this game, it seems like it will be, just because of the aspect of going to different planets that are uncolonized and building up whatever you can. So I just hope that I hope that it doesn't, ruin the story aspect.
Nice. I really like the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely hope it doesn't get in the way of the story, because I mean, in Fallout 4, it only did really towards the end, but it still did, and a lot of people just didn't want to use the settlement system at all. And whether or not that was because it was a Fallout title, people may be more forgiving because maybe this is a new IP, it fits better with the universe. I just hope that it's not super intrusive on the main story and like in your face, where people who don't want to don't have to spend a lot of time building up these settlements and colonizing and whatever. But I also hope that they expand ways you can interact with them. For example, like maybe you can not take one over, but just set up a trade route so that you have a colony on the system nearby or something, and then you're trading with them, but you don't necessarily control them directly. Or maybe the different factions have you setting up different outposts for specific factions, just kind of expand it to make it a little bit more meaningful, where it's more than just a way to gain resources, basically.
Stratter, what about you? Where do you stand rather on the settlement system?
I personally liked it, but I think it needs a lot of improvements. Like, one thing that really irritated me is if you're going to build a house, you're going to build it so it looks nice, so there's not like holes all over it. And I feel like they could give a little bit more options. So it still needs to look like stuff that's been like blown up, but they could have like made like normal looking walls and stuff too.
Okay.
Also, I was really disappointed that the stuff you paid for, I feel like they should have just had that. If they released it later, it should have been free.
Yeah.
I agree there.
Wasteland Workshop.
I feel like they could have
God.
withheld that just so that they could get more money.
Can we talk about Wasteland Workshop for like 5 seconds? Because
Oh God.
I remember trying to set up like a battle, and I was like, "This is so fucking bad." And
It was horrible.
Yeah, like I couldn't. I did it once, made a video on how to do it, and I'm like, I'm probably never fucking doing this again, because this is such a pain in the ass to get started. Like, I spent $5 to figure out how this thing works. I'm never doing it again.
Yeah,
So janky.
Yeah, I did like 3 hours. I built a little arena in my settlement, which I had to delete a bunch of my old stuff too, because they had that limit that
Oh, yeah.
that didn't really matter, because you could just go over it by that one glitch or whatever. But I spent like 3 hours, and I was only doing it for the achievement, because I 100%ed Fallout 4 up to Nuka World, and I just kind of gave up. But yeah, it was absolutely horrible. And the Wasteland Workshop DLCs are almost filler for the season pass.
They are.
Like I hated it so much.
It's like the commie block concrete set, just like building sad, drab, like concrete structures that just look sad and plain.
And then they released mods on console, or at least on Xbox, and almost half of the content they had in there were not almost half of it, but a good portion of the content in the Wasteland Workshops were already assets from the game. And a lot of these mods just gave you assets from the game that you couldn't use them with in the settlement system that you could now.
I remember within the first week of Fallout 4 launching, there was a mod on PC that was called like Settlement System Expanded, and they took almost all the assets in the game and just re-released them, and it let you expand your settlements immensely. Like, it had all the Institute stuff, all the what's the name of that gang that's supposed to like replicate the tunnel snakes, but it doesn't even come close. Atom Cats, or whatever they're called. It gave you assets for like all of this stuff, and it was, like I said, it was within the first week or two of the game. So, I wasn't a fan of that move by Bethesda. As for other leaks, this one we'll talk about something more, we'll say, trustworthy. So ResetEra.com is a website that has a kind of no BS policy when it comes to rumors and leaks, among other things. They, at least according to their frequently asked questions section, where they say that, use common sense when you post these rumors and leaks. I think that goes with any site, but they also say that if you post false information without any type of source, that you're going to get banned. And so in natural Bethesda fashion, we get a little bit of info, but of course no actual source because someone made a theory about how Starfield might be a mobile game, to which a user on Reset Era says, no, it's not, and it's coming this fall, so just wait for E3, to which a administrator quotes his post and says, at the time, administrators cannot verify the content of the quoted post made by Potterson, who is the user who said that Starfield's coming this fall and at E3. He cannot verify if the post made by him in this thread is accurate. However, the user has shared information with us that suggests they could be in a position to know the information they claim in the post. As always, Reset Era members take full responsibility for what they post. So, we have someone who might know something. We don't know how they know something. I'd like to start off with how. Perhaps this person may have come upon this information. You know, are they an industry insider? Do they work somewhere? What do you think he sent to prove himself?
I heard that what he sent was he was like a family member or a friend. He wasn't an insider.
Interesting. The family member thing comes to full circle, and we might have actually got our first Starfield leak from... Oh, okay. Keep going. Sorry.
One point is when somebody leaks something that their friend or their family member from them, that means they probably heard like a limited amount of information from them, so they're interpreting things. So some of the stuff might be wrong, and some of the stuff might be right because they interpret it a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
For me, a very limited leak like this, because it's basically just, yes, it's coming out and it's coming this fall. I mean, that's a pretty safe prediction to make because it's incredibly limited in scope. It's not like this other leak where it's all this, full page of information about different systems and things. But yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to believe that Bethesda, especially with their tweet, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, they've got something to show off, Bethesda Game Studios, that is. And if it's Starfield, yes, it's going to be coming out this fall. I think it just makes sense. But yeah, I think this leak is more credible. But that's also just by nature of it's a safer leak to make. It's just very limited. So
that's a very good point. Kopi, where do you stand on this leak?
Honestly, I really have like no clue because I don't really know big on the industry and the insides and outsides, but. Like Dolph said, it was pretty safe. They just said, yeah, it's coming out. It's not a mobile game. So maybe if it's, I don't know, it's a family member or something, but I don't know.
I just find it hilarious. Where did you hear, Strider, about this family member thing? Because that's the most interesting part to me now.
I read like 10 articles on it before, like last night. I don't know exact which one it was.
Okay, because I personally just find that so funny because we always joke about like, and especially in the comment section on my videos, I see it all the time where they're like, yeah, my dad's uncle's brother works at Bethesda and Starfield's coming 2020. You see like those jokes, and if this actual leak becomes true, and it's because this guy was a family member of a developer, that's gonna be incredible. But I personally think that there's some legitimacy here. I agree. It's because of the limited scope. Sorry, Strider, I cut you off. What were you about to say?
If it's a family member and friend, it also, like, they might not know about Montreal Studios. They might just know about the studio which their parent works at or friend. And that's why they might not realize that they're working on a mobile game. So I'm pretty sure, because I looked at some of the job hirings. For Bethesda, and some of them indicate that there's going to be multiplayer because they're getting server programmers, and there's a lot of people. They're hiring more people for mobile in Montreal.
There we go. My man did his research before he came on. Whoa, man! Yeah, let's go. That's good shit. That's exciting, then. Yeah, because I was going to say, the idea that there's not going to be a mobile game for Bethesda Game Studios after Fallout Shelter, that's one thing I don't believe. that doesn't make sense to me. There's too much money to be made. I mean, what did Fallout Shelter make, like $1 billion or something like that in a couple of weeks? It was something insane. So what do you guys think? Let's say there is this mobile game. Is it going to be more of the Fallout Shelter experience, build your own base? Do you think they go beyond that? Are there any general ideas?
I don't think a mobile game would render. Sorry, I'm eating right now.
No, it's
I
fine.
don't think a mobile game would render Bethesda coming out saying, "Oh, we can't wait to show everything we've been working on." Like they didn't talk about Fallout Shelter at all until Fallout 4 was announced, and it was a really big success. But I just don't think that it's this. It's what is coming.
What are you eating?
Cake, chocolate cake.
Oh,
Oh, that sounds delicious.
It is very delicious.
Yeah, I mean, a mobile game I think is a no-brainer at this point for Bethesda. I mean, they want to make money, right? So they saw how successful Fallout Shelter was, so I would very strongly imagine that they would want to make a tie-in for Starfield just to try and get that money. As to what form that takes, who knows? It could be. I could even envision almost like a Galaga, like bullet hell, fly it through space with a spaceship and try and dodge. That could be fun on a mobile platform, I think. Or like a base building thing similar to Fallout Shelter, but I would think they would want to do something different. So
I wouldn't complain personally though if they did do the Fallout Shelter experience again. I had a lot of fun with that, especially if it's in a new universe. Like part of the fun of Fallout Shelter was when they started saying, there are shared ideas at least between Fallout 4 and Shelter. It made Shelter a little more interesting. Kind of like how ESO and ESL or Canon Lore, we'll get into that later as well. It kind of adds that additional intrigue where, let's say Starfield gets this base building thing. We're all discovering this new universe together and what is going to be significant, what's the carryover into the next game. So I wouldn't personally be opposed to another kind of Fallout Shelter experience. I think it'd be a good time.
Yeah, no, because I remember when Fallout Shelter came out, I think they had Preston as a character you could get, and they had Piper as well, and it was like, oh, so this is kind of what the character looks like. All right, so I can't wait to see them in game,
Exactly. It was like an interaction with what you're gonna see soon. It's smart. It makes sense.
Yeah,
and
it's like a teaser.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm all on board with that. Strider, you got to pick a mobile game. What are you doing?
I'm not quite sure what it's going to be like. I just know that it's going to have one thing. It's going to have loot boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And
for sure.
I really hope it's more like Fallout Shelter than like a Clash of Clans, like where Clash of Clans makes you wait for days for something to build, to basically be like, you better pay us or you got to suffer. And Fallout Shelter was at least reasonable. So like you could play for like a long period, like play for a few hours, whereas Clash of Clans, it's more like, do I really want to sit here and watch this thing for 3 hours?
Yeah, absolutely.
Clash of Clans was a nightmare.
Have you guys played like any of the new Fallout Shelter updates, like when they added questing and stuff along those lines, and Nuka-Cola Quantum?
Yeah, I played it actually when they released it on console, or
wow.
I guess and they had the questing in there. It was fun, but there was kind of a wait aspect to it that they added. They had to wait to travel there, and then I don't know, it's like almost a waste because a lot of times they were very difficult, and you would just end up losing people.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just send in my high look at people would get the best loot. They kind of like sacrifices for the vault, get all the best loot and get out of there as quick as you can. But
yeah, that's what I was about to say though, is that like Fallout Shelter at launch I felt was like the ideal mobile game. That's why I made so much money. And then they added like questing, which was sick, and it came with that Nuka-Cola Quantum thing where you had to wait. And I thought to myself, this kind of isn't what the game was built off of. This game was supposed to be just a game, and it made so much money because people were buying just lunch boxes. That's where all the money could have only gone to. So that's the only concern I have, is if they're replicating that experience. The questing was fun, especially when they did like holiday quests and stuff. That was like a good time. But I just hope that they kind of shorten the wait time. I get they want to make money, and the way they do that is they entice the person who's playing to say like, hey, you don't have to wait. You just buy like $5 worth of Quantum. which like I made a Let's Play video a while back for Fallout Shelter, and I remember like, you know, because I'm recording it thinking like, oh, I'll do some quests, and then they're like, you got to buy Quantum, and I'm like, fuck me, man, like I'm actually about to spend money in a video, but going off track there, you know, what I'm just saying is I hope that they keep it the more traditional Shelter experience, if that's even what they do. I like the idea of a bullet hell game though, even though I suck at those.
Yeah, me too.
I'm so bad at it. Like, Undertale is the bane of my existence. Because I know I love the game just like anyone else, but like some of the bosses on the Genocide playthrough, oh my god, it's torture. It's torture.
I'm excited to play that when it comes out on Switch because I've never played it before.
Oh, it's great. It's so great. It's a really endearing game, but like if you're like me and you just feel like old when you're playing them, because I'm not old, but like when I can't react properly because of the bullet hell sequence, I'm like, am I aging? Like, is this really happening? Are my reflexes
of the
down?
first go?
Yeah. It's like, no, this is awful. So, like, that was one game that I was just like, fuck it, man. I'm dropping this. I didn't finish my Genocide playthrough. All right. Let's move on over to a peculiar tweet from Bethesda themselves. So, they earned 1 million followers on Twitter. Pretty dope. Good for them. Congrats, Bethesda Game Studios, for such widespread success. And they followed that up by thanking everyone 1 million for the followers and then saying, we can't wait to show you what we're working on. They didn't say soon. They just said they can't wait to show us what they're working on. Naturally, it's inferred that that probably means Bethesda Game Studios is going to be at E3 showing something. Was that the general consensus here? Were we all reading that thinking the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whether it's at E3 or they announce it beforehand and then show it at E3, it's going to be, I think, announced very soon, like within the next 2 months.
I just don't see a company coming out with a hidden announcement and then saying we can't wait, and it's like a year later. You know, I just don't see that as something that would happen.
It's also they kind of put themselves on watch by saying that. Like, I think they had to have known when they say that everyone's like, okay, we can't wait either. we're gonna see it at E3, right? Like one of those things. So
and then they're just not there.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, like, they kind of, maybe it's unintentionally, but they kind of set themselves up for a little disappointment if they're not there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it almost has to be intentional in a way, right? Like they make this one tweet and suddenly we're all making videos and speculating about this and the hype machine's rolling, and I mean, we're giving them free advertising basically for a game that we don't even know is real yet for sure. So
yeah, that's
like,
a good point.
I don't know. For them, I think it's a pretty masterful PR move. Whether they're going to be at E3 or not, I mean, they didn't say soon, but to me, I agree that we can't wait sounds like it's got to be very soon.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they go with the May reveal, kind of like Fallout 4?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do.
See, I'd like that. But if it's like a new IP, let's say it is Starfield, because I mean, there's always the chance, like, I've seen some wild theories, man, and like some of them I'm like, God, this is actually almost plausible, because I think someone did like some research for Elder Scrolls, and I think they said something like in the lore there is this thing called like the Starfield that you can pass through. Yeah, it was like actually a thing, and I was like, oh fuck, they're sort of like, is Starfield a code name for the upcoming Elder Scrolls game? And I thought, you know, there is like a little bit of plausibility there, but we have to keep an open mind that this could be something else. But then again, you look at what Pete Hines said and how he's like, they've earned the right to do something new because they don't want to just be Fallout Elder Scrolls. But regardless, so let's say it is a May reveal. What do you think we see? Is it kind of like Fallout 4, a little gameplay trailer, or is it going to be cinematic? Because I think it varies depending on what the game is, right? If it's Fallout 4, you just want to see the game. But if it's a new IP, do they want to sell the idea and the intrigue with like a CGI trailer? That's kind of what I'm getting at here.
Maybe I could see them doing CGI over over gameplay, just because it's something new that we haven't seen before, and then people are like, "Oh man, whoa!" Because we know the gameplay is going to be like Skyrim and not Skyrim, Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Like we know how Bethesda, you know, works with their. They just feel similar, so we know it's going to be like that somewhat. So I can see them going for CGI to introduce, you know, the story, the whatever it is, because we don't know anything about it. So we have to get something to to fill us, give us some nice information.
Yeah, I could see CGI or even live action too, like a live action trailer with people like going through space and looking at planets and whatever. But I agree that to sell a new IP, I think you need to kind of introduce the universe, maybe not with gameplay. I do think that a cinematic trailer of some kind, whether it be CG or whatever, is probably going to be the most likely. I mean, who knows? They could throw us a curveball, but personally, I think that's the best way to introduce a new idea, to kind of sell the universe and introduce you to, okay, maybe these are some characters, this is what you're going to be doing, this is what's going on. Yeah, we'll see.
I think it's at least like at the minimum, they're going to release like a photo or something from the game that gives you hints. But I think they're most likely going to do a live action trailer.
Yeah, I was about to.
With Fallout 4, they did that like please stand by, and then they did the trailer the next day.
That was amazing. I love that so much.
Yeah, right. So like that's the thing is, with Fallout 4, like a lot of people built it up themselves. Like we were excited, and then it got announced. With this, it's Starfield. There's that realm of the unknown. Like I said, it can really be anything. It might not even be Starfield. It could be, like I said, it could be anything. So like Bethesda's announcement tactics can vary up now. Do they want to just go at it with an announcement? Do they want to tease something? Because we've seen what happens when you tease like a sequel with a Fallout 4, or I think more recently, for a better example, would be like a Red Dead Redemption 2, where you just change your logo to something red and people go, oh my god, it's happening. But there was that familiarity because it was Red Dead Redemption. Whereas with the new IP, like Dov said, I think you kind of need to introduce the universe. So I'm very curious to see how Bethesda does this, or do they just entirely disregard a May announcement and say, we're just going to surprise them at E3 when everyone's watching?
I was just going to say, the issue with E3 is I think sometimes you can get lost in the chaos a little bit, just because E3 is all this stuff going on everywhere. So for me, if I was a company, I would want to announce something just prior to E3 so that then I could show it off there, and it's already in people's consciousness that it's there, and I'm not having to try and spread this new idea amidst all this other noise.
Hell yeah. That's a good point. It's a very good point.
Like Strider said, I could even see them just tweeting out a picture or a logo or something. It says Starfield, and then maybe like a web page with information about more information, a little link, and then we see everything at E3.
I'm just laughing because I could see now them just Googling like an actual Starfield and just posting that picture, no caption. Everyone would freak out, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
That's what they could do, though. See, that's something. Yeah. If it were Starfield, that would be interesting. Oh man!
And it's basically just like, you're gonna see this at E3 is basically what it is, right?
Yeah.
I think they should do something like what the Cloverfield movies did, where they released like things about like the universe. So like they had they made fake MySpace pages, and like they made fake websites that people would go to, and that'd be really interesting. And the Bethesda fans, ARG, and we would absolutely love that because it's something to do because we're always trying to figure out what they're doing, so they can give us stuff so we can try to figure out what they're doing.
I'd love that too because although it was a lot of heartbreak, some of the fondest memories with an ARG was the Survivor 2299. That was that was such a blast, just digging in and finding out all we could on something, and like them next time they post a number and it's a Vault Tech number, you're like, this has got to be Fallout, man. So like I'd love for Bethesda to embrace that and create a marketing campaign around that. The question is, does that get the widespread attention they need? I think they already have it. So what do they? So for them, it's as a business, they're probably like, do we need to invest all these resources and time? Probably not, but would it be fun? Oh my god, yeah, I'd love something like that if they did like an ARG with websites and.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about. I don't know if you guys played Overwatch. I think Maddie, I think you did. But I remember back. Yeah, I was playing it today actually, but I remember way back when the first ever hero that they were going to release as as an extra, they had this Sombra ARG, and it was insane, but it was kind of a letdown.
Oh yeah,
like towards the end.
Dragged that out.
Yeah, but it was still really like the community. It was really fun to see that, go transpire.
That's
So that'd be really fun. I think that'd be cool. Do I see it happening? I don't think so, but it would be cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, Overwatch is another one. That's a good example, and kind of disproves what I said, because I'm thinking like, oh, if you're so popular, then why would you do it? But Overwatch is insanely popular. Still.
Well, the thing is, Sombra was it is popular, but I think the ARG was kind of because Sombra was almost this stealthy, under the table hacker girl. So I think that kind of played into her character more, because Overwatch does like these little teasers every now and then on there, but it's not so much as big as Sombra was. But I think that's just more about her character.
Traditional, like you search the new maps for more hints, and then you deduce what's going on in the future based off that stuff. I think that's kind of what I've seen.
Yeah, which is it's kind of been disappointing lately. They really haven't been giving us as much as we wanted.
I haven't played Overwatch in a while. I've had like a craving to go back, but
you should definitely play it during this event.
It's the intimidation of learning the meta again, because when I last played it, it was it was like Mercy was good. You could use most
still
support
pretty
characters, but like now with Moira being added and there's other
she's
characters
so good.
Added. Yeah, like I've heard that things have just changed a ton, and I feel like the characters I normally use probably wouldn't be as good now. But I like I said, I used to play support like Lucio or Mercy.
Yeah, Lucio's still. I mean, you could still play any support. I think Ana's the only one that's like you don't want to touch her.
Oh, she used to be busted though.
yeah, but then the triple tank meta died, so she died too.
Oh, it's a triple tank. Yeah, we used to do like Winston, Zarya, and yeah. Damn. I really want to go back and play now.
Yeah, if you're gonna go back, you should go back like soon, because the event that's going on right now is it's fun, but I don't know, I like it.
Cool. So this Bethesda Game Studios tweet, anything we want to add on? Any more speculative points to talk on?
I have a theory that I believe is possible, but is most likely not true. I think it's possible that id is the one that is doing Starfield, and I think it would be really funny if at E3 id revealed it. And everybody thinks it's BGS.
So and why do you think it's id?
So I think it's possible. I think it's most likely BGS. But when I was reading the trademarks, they're really good at making first-person shooters, and in the trademarks, compared to I read Fallout, Skyrims, and Starfields, and with the Starfields, they had a bunch of stuff about online stuff and competitions and tournaments, whereas there was nothing for Skyrim and Fallout. And I feel like BGS isn't the type of developer where they make competitive games for tournaments besides speedrunning them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they added that to the trademark. So I think it's possible that there could be a Doom-like game that has multiplayer that is in space.
Interesting.
Going back to the leak about the procedural generation, with what you just said, I'm almost seeing the new game as kind of like a Sea of Thieves, where you have a bunch of different ships flying around the galaxy at one time and a bunch of different people.
Oh, God.
That's interesting.
I'd be interested to see the multiplayer aspect. Certainly, I do think that potentially we could see some kind of co-op multiplayer where you can get like a crew of 4 and go out and explore planets and whatever. I know a lot of people have wanted for a long time, like even just with the mainline BGS titles, to have co-op multiplayer where you could at least like drop in and play as Piper or something, play as a companion in your friend's storyline or whatever. Or have even some people have wanted like a Borderlands style, 4-player co-op shooter game. But I definitely could see some kind of crew mechanic where you get, up to 4 friends and maybe fly around on one person's ship and you go do stuff or explore these procedurally generated areas, whereas maybe the handcrafted areas are a single player only experience.
Yeah, I could. With what going back to the leak, it said your character's not special, which would leave room for that, because then you're not going to have 2 lone wanderers walking around, right? It would just be 4. Whatever you are, so I could see that. I could see how that would fit in well.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like multiplayer is in Bethesda's future. I know it's not a fit, but they just seem kind of... I feel like Fallout 4 didn't have the legs that they wanted or expected, and I think with the way the industry's trending, I know Bethesda's very much like a do their own thing kind of company, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they went the opposite way, but I also wouldn't be surprised either if they decided to follow a trend, make a multiplayer game, almost a hero shooter or whatever it is, something in their own vein, like I hate to use the comparison, but I do think of Destiny, where you have like the PvE content and then you can go to the PvP with the stuff you've looted. It sounds incredibly like
Sounds
Destiny.
Too much like Destiny.
I was gonna say it's starting to disturb me. I think I'm gonna have nightmares tonight.
The random loot procedurally generated is just like, oh god.
Yeah.
Sounds so much like it.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe that's the thing, is like this Reddit leak doesn't have as much credit as or as much plausibility surrounding it as potentially that one from Reset Era. So when you look at the potentially fake one and you start seeing the similarities, like a Destiny, No Man's Sky, I think it kind of adds to how it's probably fake, right? Because like it's clear that like he did his research on BGS, but it's also clear that a lot of the sources he drew from were other popular space games, like all those randomly generated shit and the weapons and stuff.
I see the weapons being a thing just because of how Fallout 4 went down, but I don't know.
No, I agree with that. Sadly.
Yeah.
As Strider would say, we're getting it whether we like it or not.
It's inevitable.
Anyway, now we're going to shift over to the lore side of things. That's enough about Starfield leaks and Bethesda Game Studios speculation. Until later, we have one more topic for that. For now, we're going to talk about Elder Scrolls Online and Elder Scrolls Legends. My buddy Camworks, he did a little interview with Matt Fire, who is the, as he would say, the Todd Howard of ZeniMax Online Studios. So he's the game director for Elder Scrolls Online. And he just confirmed, and this has been confirmed in the past, I think part of the reason it wasn't common knowledge or official knowledge is because there's a lot of disregard surrounding ESO. It's like, oh, this game's not the real Elder Scrolls I like, so therefore it doesn't count. And there are lore inconsistencies that have happened, so therefore I can imagine a lot of people just instantly disregard it because of that. But Matt Fire did confirm that this is all canon lore. What's happening in the ESL storyline, ESO, they have lore masters, and it's all part of the Elder Scrolls universe. So, has anyone here played some ESO in their day?
I have played a bit of ESO, and I have to say, not that the ESO, the contradictions between the lore of the other games bothered me at all, because, I mean, even if you look at all of the Elder Scrolls games have lore contradictions, and it's the reason they're set hundreds of years apart is so that Bethesda doesn't have to be super fine detail about the lore and this and that and what happened, and you can make choices in the game and not have it impact the later storyline. And like I said, the lore has never been consistent. I mean, you have, like, the end of Daggerfall, for example. There's 5 different endings, and in Morrowind, they went, okay, all of them happened at the same time, and there was a dragon break. Well, what's a dragon break? It's magic. Don't question it, you know? So, I mean, the lore of the Elder Scrolls has never been that consistent. So to say that ESO and ESL are canon is, yeah, sure, why not? They can be, sure. And it's the IP owner's right to say what is canon and what is not. That being said, I played ESO, and I can't think of a single dialogue sequence that I read or listened to be honest. Like, I literally just skipped through everything because it just wasn't interesting to me. Like, it's not that the contradictions bothered me, it's just that I didn't find the lore of ESO compelling. And I've never played Legends. I hear it's good, but I have no idea about the lore of that game.
What about the rest of you? Any ESO or ESL in your days?
About
I played-
5 hours. Not much.
I played
I didn't-
a good bit of ESO, but I kind of regretted buying it on console, unfortunately.
Did you buy it
But
online?
like,
Oh wait, if you bought it on console, you got Tamriel Unlimited, right?
yeah, $60. But like Dov said, I didn't pay attention to anything. I just kind of went in with my friends, like, oh, Skyrim multiplayer, and obviously that's not what it was. But yeah,
See, I've been playing Somerset early. Bethesda gave me. I'm making a video on it. Bethesda gave me access to the beta or the closed beta for it, and I can't say anything about the story other than like I actually found myself surprisingly intrigued, and it wasn't because I'm on like an Elder Scrolls kick lately, because a lot of people know I started a new playthrough on Oblivion, and that's already like kind of satiating my taste for Elder Scrolls. So actually the idea of like starting another new ES adventure was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this as much as like I could, but I actually found it really gripping. It was the situation that was presented in the story was something I haven't really seen in Elder Scrolls. I can say, yeah, because I know when the quest I can't talk about up until. So, like, they open the borders for the Somerset Isle, and the Altmer are kind of, like, conflicted about, all right, we have all these new races coming in, but we're more of an isolated type of people. Is this for the best? And seeing how people react to Queen Iren's decree, it's really interesting, because everyone's got their own take on it, and it kind of felt like almost political in a way. So that's kind of gripped me. Whereas Morrowind, which I also tested in last year, I didn't find as gripping because I felt they were just trying to stay in line too much with the original Morrowind, and I feel like that limited their potential creativity. Whereas like other ones I've played and enjoyed, like I love the Dark Brotherhood expansion for ESO. But what I'm trying to say is that the game has improved, because it seems like you guys haven't played it in a while. But it's storytelling wise, at least, because for me, I agree. Like sometimes the side stories, like you hit that point where it's like MMO-ish and you're just killing a bunch of enemies and shrugging along. But at least in the expansions, it feels like they're listening, and a lot of the storytelling's improved.
Yeah, I haven't played any. I played a little bit of the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild, but beyond that, I haven't played any of the expansions. So, I do have to say the areas there were crafted better. I can't say that, at least right now, I don't remember that the stories were that much more impactful for me in those areas. From what I understand, the Orsinium DLC was really good, and I haven't played Morrowind, and I don't plan on getting the Somerset Isles. So, yeah.
Elder
For me, the
Scrolls
story
Legends
is
one,
just not.
I was kind of surprised about. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I was just going to say the story for me is just not super compelling.
Understandable. What do you guys feel about an Elder Scrolls card game is canon?
Well, I'm not big on the Elder Scrolls lore exactly. So what does that mean? Like what?
One common thing about Elder Scrolls lore is that it's not an accurate narrator. So you pretty much can say anything's canon because, like when you're playing Skyrim, there actually isn't only like 23 cabbages per like how many people live in one city or something like that. Like it's actually much more vast. It's just like it's a representative of the real thing. So like the card game could be theoretic, or it could be somebody's actually going to battle with another person, but the game mechanics is just people playing, using cards against each other.
I just think about Gwent and Witcher, and I see how they'd be like, oh, that's canon because it's a game. It's a card game inside of The Witcher, or even Courier in New Vegas. I think that's what it was called, right?
Yeah.
So what?
Caravan.
Yeah. Caravan.
Oh, yeah,
Caravan.
yeah.
I just think like I don't know. I have never played Legends. I know nothing about it, so I don't know what that means by saying like how they say it's canon. I guess I don't know.
It's got a main story. If that's
Oh, okay. I was going to ask
okay.
if Legends have its own story, but okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah, that's sorry. I should have specified. It's not the game itself. It's the story in the game itself.
All right.
That's what's canon. And that surprised me personally. Like that would be one I'd look at and go, it's probably not canon. Like, it's just you're playing a main story in a card game. And what's funny is the idea is like it's not even like people sitting down and like in Gwent and playing a card game. It's like as the story progresses, it's about this guy Tyr he's doing some type of shit I don't remember, and he like will be attacked by wolves, and then they're like you have to defend yourself, and then like a card game starts, and it's like you're obviously not putting cards down in front of a wolf, like they're technically fighting. The card battle represents the fight itself. It's strange. It's like they wanted to tell a story but didn't have the right gameplay systems for it. It's odd. It feels weird. But that was one that caught me off guard. So yeah, ESO and ESL are indeed canon lore. I think one thing that you were just touching on this, Strider, was the unreliable narrator. That's something I wish I mentioned in my video about this because it was such a good point that kind of like even people in real life, everyone's got their own perspective on certain things, certain gods. So it gives the leniency to almost have a lore error because you could just say, oh, it's the unreliable narrator. It means like that person saying like, here's the decree of this god Oriel or whatever. That decree, that's their perspective on the decree itself. So it's like, it allows flexibility for lore errors, which I don't know if that's like a cop out. I mean, it makes sense, right? But
like a story inside the story.
Yeah, exactly. Like one person will think one thing about this situation, and someone else will think another, and then you go to the next game, and then they'll retell that story. It'll be different from what exactly happened there because it's hundreds of years down the line, so therefore it's going to be inaccurate. It's very interesting how it all works out.
Like that's how they could do like different decisions, and like you can do this or that, and then 100 years later, someone will say this happened, someone will say that happened. No one knows if the Dragonborn killed. I don't know what a story in Skyrim, but like they could just use that inconsistency as an aspect to say it wasn't decided what actually happened in the game. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying, but.
I get you.
Yeah, like did the Dragonborn, let's say the Dark Brotherhood quest line, did the Dragonborn kill the Emperor, or was it someone else? We may never know. And that's the point, is that for me, you could say it's a crutch. I mean, I don't think it would be necessarily wrong to call it that, because it does allow them to not have to worry so much about the lore and be able to focus more on making a fun game, making good, solid gameplay mechanics and crafting and hopefully an interesting story. But yeah, I do think that you look at even like the older games like Elder Scrolls Redguard and stuff. And by the way, canons are canon. If you say that all the games are canon, in Redguards they reference canons, and there are indeed the sound of cannons as well. So canons are indeed
and
canon.
Gunpowder.
So yeah, I mean, sure, all of them can be canon, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that Bethesda does overuse the unreliable narrator and these other crutches like the Dragon Break, or like, oh, Cyrodiil is a swamp. Oh no, that was just a mistranslation in this book. Like a certain amount of that, I think, adds some immersion and some depth to the world, and it's one of the things that makes the Elder Scrolls really interesting. But I do think that Bethesda tends to overuse it somewhat in that they're trying to excuse things and kind of cover their mistakes in a way.
An example I've always used, since the discussion has cropped up, is Hammerfell. Like, anytime you talk about Hammerfell in the Elder Scrolls, they go, oh, it's just desert. There's nothing really there. It's just a lot of desert. And it's like, I guarantee, because you were just talking about the Redguard and cannons, and, I can imagine, like, Bethesda saying, like, well, if we put them in Hammerfell, like, maybe we can make, like, a ship mechanic as well, and on top of that, like, they'll obviously make the world more visually enticing. You can go to Hammerfell in ESO and it looks a lot better, but like I'm saying, that if it's all just straight desert, kind of like in New Vegas, as much as I love New Vegas, that can definitely lose a couple of folk, especially nowadays where graphics play such a huge factor in consumer interest. Believe it or not, I think the statistic was like 50% of consumers decide whether or not they're going to buy a game just first look on graphics alone. It's not even the gameplay. They just want to know if it looks good. So I think I know what I'm trying to get at is that I feel like Bethesda will retcon and lean on this crunch as much as they have to, because if they come up with a good idea and it can fit a certain world space in Tamriel, then they're just going to do that. At least in my humble opinion. My limited lore knowledge for Elder Scrolls as I try to learn more.
So, for my, I'm not a lore master, but I know a decent amount about Hammerfell, and from what I know, there's a little bit of tropical areas in it, and they could just make it a little bit bigger than it, like, has been, like, not make it vastly bigger than it's been reported in previous games. Just have it a little bit bigger so it's enough where it can intrigue the player, but not enough where a huge lore fan can point it out.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely. And stuff like that. Another example is Skyrim. Oh, it's just a frozen tundra. No. Like, we play Skyrim and there's beautiful sections of the game that's just wooded area. And then there are those snow-capped mountains and stuff along those lines, but it's definitely not a frozen tundra unless you're at, like, the throat of the world. So, yeah, Bethesda's not afraid to retcon and change things because Skyrim made for an excellent world space and a really fun game. And so I'm glad that they, leaned on the crutch there, right, and changed things up. Same thing with Cyrodiil, and like you said, it was a swampy area, but Oblivion was an incredible game, especially for its time. I'm glad that they didn't just stick to their guns and say, well, we can't go to Cyrodiil because we said it's swampy. It's things like that I agree with being strict with the lore, but I think in a situation like this, or for future Elder Scrolls games, I think it's a smart choice to keep the options open and just let the stories be told. As like Dov said, it builds a more interesting universe. Last topic that we can hop into is going to be about what we can expect from Bethesda's E3 conference. I figured, this is going to be a conversation, ladies and gentlemen who listen to the podcast weekly. Just know, I'm saying it right now, we're revisiting this multiple times as more rumors develop because, it's becoming more and more easier to predict what we can see. And as I bring on guests, I like to hear their takes, and I know other listeners out there like to hear the different takes of people and what they feel is coming to E3. So, in whatever order you guys would like to go to or go through, what are you expecting from Bethesda's E3 conference this year?
So my good boy Camelworks, he made a video recently about there was a quote from PAX, Pete Hines saying, let's see here, we have a lot of new games and new projects. So to me that says they're going to be showing off some new games and new projects. To me says DLC. Now, whether that's like a single-player DLC for Doom or, something along those lines. I even had the thought of maybe it's some expanded Creation Club content where we're getting something that's actually substantial, like a quest DLC or a new area DLC, essentially through the Creation Club, because I know they've retained some. I correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they retained like TrainWiz and some other mod makers who are more known for their world space creation and quest creation. So maybe they're going to show off some larger scale Creation Club content, because that's what everyone's been requesting. That's what everyone wants to see through this system, is for these games to get more content that's actually meaningful, right? Yes. I'd be willing to pay another, $10 for an Automatron-sized DLC, personally. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. For me, the new projects thing stands out. I mean, we know new games. Most likely, we've kind of speculated that Starfield's going to be announced, but we'll see what that new projects. To me, that's the most intriguing part.
Okay. Kopi, what about you?
I honestly don't really know. It would be interesting to see some good Creation Club content come out, like you said, like expanded worlds or whatever. But with DLC, I don't know, maybe instead of doing Creation Club, we could actually get another Fallout 4 something. I mean, I guess they're done with it, but Starfield, obviously. But I don't know. I really don't really...
Like another Fallout game, like a Fallout...
No, another Fallout like DLC, but I think they're done with it. But another project would be nice to see. I don't know, a different area we could visit in Fallout 4, but I guess Creation Club would be the wiser decision, I suppose, as to how they would tackle that.
Well, because that way they can use outside talent. They don't have to use their Bethesda employees to make this content, right? So it's not taking away from the development of other things. They can use the outside talent from the Creation Club to develop something that's meaningful. And I honestly think it would be a big success if Bethesda were to do something like that. So if anyone from Bethesda is listening, please do that.
Strider, what about you? What do you expect from BE3?
One of the companies that is under Bethesda Softworks is going to release Starfield. I'm 100% sure of one of them, and I'm 90% sure it's going to be Bethesda Game Studios.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be a Prey expansion. I think they're also going to update us on the Creation Club. And they're probably going to talk about how it's going to be used in Starfield, maybe.
Yep.
I was probably
I was just gonna.
Bethesda.
I was just gonna quickly interject. I will probably see Creation Club day one for Starfield. I hope not, but probably.
What about user created mods for Starfield? Like how Fallout 4 has the what is it called? The Bethesda mod
creation kit. I mean,
Bethesda
if it's made, if it's made on the same engine as Fallout 4, I mean, regardless of whether Bethesda develops tools for users to make mods, there are already tools available for that system that would just need to be adapted to Starfield. So I would imagine that we're going to see, I mean, with Fallout 4, we saw pretty much day one modding take place on the Nexus and some other areas. So yeah, I would imagine that if Starfield's built on the same architecture, it's going to be day one modding probably.
That's my thing is like, if it's built on the same modding architecture as you just said, then the natural thought would be like, I mean, think of how long it took for Fallout 4 mods to come out. And now that they have the infrastructure set up for BethesdaNet, for Creation Club, will all of that come out a little bit sooner? Will it be delayed now because they got 3 different systems to manage? Those are the things I personally wonder. For me, I'm expecting Doom 2 at E3. I feel like, it's been so quiet, and they didn't make, they made multiplayer DLC, so there was like new maps, but that definitely didn't demand the full team on that whatsoever. And it was very surprising that they went all in on multiplayer DLC, considering the most popular part of this entire game was absolutely its single player. So I think Doom 2 is ready to go this year. Like I think it's gonna either get the similar treatment it got at E3 2015, where it got its big gameplay reveal, and then I think it released a year later, so I could see that happening. But then obviously Bethesda Game Studios, I'm expecting something from them, whether it's Starfield, Fallout, what have you. Something's coming from them. I agree with the Creation Club. I thought about that. Like, will it just be a trailer? Will they come out on stage and talk about it? How will that go? That's what I'm most curious about. Prey expansion's a guarantee. There's going to be like a Prey-esque release, similar to what Dishonored Death of the Outsider had, which is kind of what fortifies why I believe they're going to do Doom next spring, just because at that point, you're going to have 2 fall games from Bethesda Game Studios, so you're going to have your short expansion of Prey, and you'll have your big AAA title from Bethesda Game Studios that you don't want to pull an EA and launch your 2 AAA titans right on top of each other, like Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2, and just kill one of them. It won't be good, and probably the one that'll die out is the not BGS title. So that's kind of just my general take on what's coming to E3. But when they say new projects, new games, maybe there's a new studio Bethesda owns that we don't know about. I forgot which one they acquired that helps them generally across their studios. I think it starts like an A or a B. I can't remember.
Austin?
Not Austin, no. It was a... if you go on their website, it'll say it under the developers. I can't remember it right now. But regardless, I'm sure maybe they'll be working on something. Now that we know Battle Cry is pretty much out of existence since that studio got transformed into Bethesda Game Studios Austin, I imagine that we're not going to see that. So it's very intriguing what he means by new projects in games, because there's only so many studios that can work on something under the Bethesda family, and when most of them have released something within the last year and a half, it definitely is it's a head scratcher in my opinion.
What do you guys think about Switch ports? Like,
Fallout
I think-
4.
maybe, yeah, Fallout 4. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it's money on the table. They'd be silly to leave it there.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Kopi. I didn't even think of Switch ports. I mean, I'd love for them to start, doing like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Oblivion. And
I don't see New Vegas, but 3 would be nice.
Yeah, if they did New Vegas, that would be dope, but I don't see it either. But I just personally would love for them to start getting with the going back and resurrecting their games, because the issue is less of like I just want to go back and play them, and more so, a lot of people who only play on PC, for example, Fallout 3 like does not work. It's unless you mod the shit out of it, and at that point it's such a pain in the ass in my opinion that it's not even worth it. It's like I would love it if they just re-released Fallout 3 or updated it so that it would work on
Remaster?
modern consoles. Yeah, a remaster, I don't know, but like I'd love that if they did that. So that's why I personally think they should do it for Fallout 3.
I feel like I want to see it for Fallout 3, but what they did, I remember they added Fallout 3 as a backwards compatible game. I think you got it for free with Fallout 4.
You did.
So I don't know if they would do that, but I think Skyrim did pretty well on the Switch. So introducing Fallout 4, which I don't know if that would be hard for them to do for the Switch for
I just remember
for that game.
They got Wolfenstein 2 on the Switch coming out this fall, so they're probably going to do a trailer for that, and then maybe they can lead in after that and say like, oh, we also got other Switch games, and do like a Fallout on the Switch or Dishonored on the Switch. That'd be interesting. Switch is getting a lot of support, a lot.
Mhm.
So.
I think Doom 2 is going to release within a year of the PS4 and Xbox One releases on the Switch. I think they're going to do it much quicker than they usually do.
Yeah, the issue is Doom on Switch just wasn't good. I tested it and I didn't like it. It was, because and part of it is like the first time I played Doom and beat it, I was on PC, so like, it was on the best place that you could play the game, but it just wasn't smooth enough. The thumbsticks like just didn't feel right with the action, especially in a handheld. It didn't work. Doom's one of those weird games because it didn't work on VR as well, and it didn't work on Switch as well either. Switch is more for technical limitations. VR, it just didn't have that same locomotion.
That's why I don't know about Fallout 4 on the Switch. I guess Fallout 4 has the same engine as Skyrim, right?
Yeah,
More or less, yeah.
version.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. I remember Fallout 4 kind of had problems running on the Xbox One sometimes.
There's
So
optimization issues with the game. So
Yeah.
that's the issue
So
that they're facing with Fallout 4 on the Switch.
yeah, so that's what scares me a little bit. Or I don't know.
I also
That's why,
feel
like, we tease Skyrim on the Switch so much, or Skyrim being ported, but the reason it's ported is because it's optimized well. Like, you look at
Mhm.
the 360 file size, and I think it was like just over 3 gigs. But look how big Skyrim is. That doesn't look like a 3 gig game, but like it's just well optimized, so it's easy to take and put on other systems.
I remember, wasn't the PlayStation version of it like horrible though?
Yes, yes it was. Or was it the PlayStation version, or was it the DLC? I think it was. The
I don't
DLC.
know.
Something. I think I know the Dawn Guard DLC was like completely busted.
Yep.
It was like a huge issue for it. I
yeah.
felt bad for any PS3 players, because I had a friend who was like trying to platinum the game, and like he was about to get it, but then the game bugged on like his last trophy, and like he couldn't get it, and because just the whole game broke on him. So it's like shit like that, man. It's Bethesda needs to work on their PlayStation game, because with Fallout 4, it wasn't even the game itself. It was more of the Bethesda net mods and the lack of mod support. It's always something with Sony and Bethesda. They just have a horrible relationship. But that's all I personally expect from E3. Anyone got some last minute additions to that list?
Nothing really. I mean, I think we pretty much covered everything we expect. Have we missed any of the other devs under the Bethesda umbrella? I don't think so.
No, we talked about ESO, ESL. We talked about Arcane's probably not going to be there because they just released Death of the Outsider and Dishonored 2 before that. Who else is there? The Evil Within just released. Wolfenstein just released. Some Machine Games and Tango Gameworks are covered. Bethesda Game Studios and id.
Yeah, that's
Open
everyone.
Slate. Yeah, open slate. Anyway, then I guess that'll conclude the H.A.M Radio Podcast, episode 153, as my dog loudly barks in the background. I apologize for that. Is there anything you fellas would like to plug before we close off this episode, or shall I wrap it up?
I mean, again, I'll just plug my own YouTube channel, I guess. I
Sweet.
do Total War multiplayer content, so if you guys are into an esport type thing, go ahead and check it out. If you like strategy games, I do some other stuff too, and occasionally I'll sprinkle in like some Sea of Thieves or something like that. So just general gaming, but with a specific focus on Total War Warhammer multiplayer.
Cool. Anyone else? Kopi? Strider?
This is my Twitter, @KopeyTheKitten. Just come follow me.
Cool.
I'm good.
All right, sweet. Thank you guys so much for joining this episode. It was an absolute blast discussing everything Bethesda with you fine folk. And to the listeners out there, we hope you enjoyed. If you listened this far, the hashtag for this week will be... It's going to be Strider did his research. That's what it's going to be. Brought some heavy speculation to the table. So, yeah, if you got this far, let us know. Tag any of the handles you see on screen. We'd love to hear from you. And we will catch you guys in the next episode. Peace out.